in 1984, he was cast in this show called Cover Up, which is basically, it's really funny actually. It's like a combination of Making of a Male Model and the show that he'd been in previously. It's where he's an undercover CIA agent posing as a model, and only on TV. And then so he was working, I guess he was saying that he was working really hard. They were working him really hard, very long hours. He was always exhausted. And when they were shooting the 7th episode of Cover Up, there was the scene where he was supposed to be loading a revolver, and the bullets that he were using were blanks. And so he took a nap on the bed in one of the sets, and he woke up and he was groggy, and they were trying to get the shot, but then the shot was delayed. So he was killing time, and he was spinning the gun around, and he was pretending to play Russian roulette. And he took all of the rounds out of the gun, except for one, and he spun the chamber around and put it to his head, and he fired. And a blank cartridge, it doesn't have a bullet in it, but it has like pieces of like cardboard or like cotton or something. But the explosion was strong enough to like, and it was close enough that it shot that wad of cotton right into his head. And, you know, he was rushed to the hospital, and then, you know, they tried, but he was eventually declared brain dead. And it was just a horrible, senseless tragedy and an awful thing. You know, it like gives me chills talking about it, because it's just so, it's like, what a fucking waste.
What is really crazy is that his co-star had been injured on set by blanks.
Yes.
His co-star, I think it's Jennifer O'Neill. Jennifer,
yeah,
but she had been injured
on.
Yeah, she had been injured on set with guns, and that's why she was very like, she would always say like, don't play with prop guns, don't point that at me, I'm serious, because he would often play with the prop guns and things like that.
And I'm like, where was the prop master?
So she had been
I was like, where's the prop master?
Exactly.
This?
Yeah.
Like, where the hell was he?
And this is something that we see often. And every time this happens on set, they're like, guns are not a toy. And it's like, but you know what? It doesn't matter, because this has happened to Jon Erik Hexum. It happened to Brandon Lee. It happened to the DP on Rust. You know,
the Alec Baldwin
dead.
Yeah. Yeah.
This continues to happen. And the thing is like, as more and more, so you know, as more and more productions become faster paced, independent, whatever, I can tell you gun safety is not something people take seriously. I just produced a short film where they tried to do a forcible yes. That's what I call it, forcible yes, when they're like last minute, they try to have an emergency, so you have to say yes, like, oh yeah, we forgot this cop was going to have a gun on him. And I'm like, no, you don't get to do that in 24 hours notice, or even a week's notice. You don't get to be like, oh, and this, no, that's coming from day one, written in the script. We are not doing that, especially with a bunch of like 18-year-old kids who don't even, who first of all are all art kids, and they don't know anything about handling a weapon, you know, not to stereotype, but come on. I mean,
yeah, no,
we are not bringing a weapon on a low budget set. We are not. It's just not happening. And every time a tragedy like this happens, that's always, and I even saw news clips that were covering this tragedy that happened in 1984. They were like, and you know, guns should always be handled by the prop master, always locked up. And it's like, well, yeah, but where was the prop master?
Yeah.
You know, and oftentimes it's because they're working long hours, or you have an actor who will bully the property master. It's like, it's not so cut and dry. You know what I mean? There's so many bizarre interpersonal relationships that happen on set. I do think it's weird, though, that the show is called Cover Up, and the way he died is still a little bizarre, because the way they handled it on Mysteries and Scandals was they interviewed the property master, or they interviewed the only witness they had at the time, and everything around it seems odd. It just seems
Because
like,
everybody was like,
I
oh,
don't
we
know.
didn't see him do it, but we just heard it, and it's like, oh, he was just goofing around and playing Russian roulette for his own amusement. No, he was goofing off for people who were watching him and laughing. But then they didn't want to admit that they saw him, and it's just like everybody was trying to distance themselves from it and act like they weren't there and they didn't know.
Yeah.
um and I highly doubt that. I mean, like, I feel bad for them, their lives, I mean, like, how do you come back from seeing somebody shoot themselves in the head accidentally? That'll fuck you up. But it's, yeah, nobody really, like, took responsibility for that in any way.
No. But I will say the amazing thing that came out of it is that he did donate his organs, and his heart was transplanted to a former Vietnam vet who, and it saved his life. His eyes were donated, his kidneys were donated and put into a
Mm.
child. So parts of him literally are living on in other people. I mean, he literally donated his organs. I think it was a year or 2 years before this happened, which is
Yeah.
bizarre because one of his close friends had was one of his close friends' sisters or siblings was saved by an organ donor, had saved their liver, and so he
Oh
was
my
like, "I'm
God.
going to become an organ donor because of this." And then, so he had become an organ donor prior to this accident, and because of that foresight, he was able to, help extend the lives of others in many ways. So it's one of those really bizarre things because right now somebody, some child from in 1983, you know, was able is a grown adult right now walking around with Jon Erik Hexum's kidneys, you know. And just think
Yeah.
about that. It's it's insane. It's insane. And that to me is pretty that's amazing, because that, you know, it, yeah. So that's one good thing that came out of that, if
Yeah.
anything,
Yeah.
is that.
But
So
it's one of those, and I think that he definitely could have gone on to become a very big star, but dying in such a tragic way that, people, I don't think if you ask the average person on the street about him now, they're not going to know who he is, but something about that death, like, the people who were around at the time remembered that. And just me as, like, you know, a gay guy who likes old stuff, I was, just, like, following, I don't know, like, old, gay Instagrams, and then they would put up pictures of him, and I'd be like, who is he? And then they would always have, this tragic story. And so I knew, I was like, oh my God, Jon Erik Hexum, he's that incredibly beautiful guy who died from a gunshot to the head. Um,
um, it
but
it sounds like it's the River Phoenix because
yeah, it's,
everybody my age knows where they were when River Phoenix died. But now if you tell that to the regular person, they're like, "Who? The Joker?"
yeah, yeah,
Never
yeah.
thought that would
It,
happen. Never thought anyone would forget about River Phoenix.
I know. Um, so it's this, so in a way it's like this movie is, he's got Voyagers, and he's got a couple of episodes of that other show, and then he's got this movie, and, like, a few, a few little, like, a little part in a movie and a little guest spot here and there. But you know those are his things, those are the things that we have of him. And so, it, as silly as this is, you're like, okay, this is like a document. This is a document of just, like, how beautiful he was, and maybe he would have gone on to become a better actor and, like, give great performances, or maybe he would have gone on to be a big action star, or maybe he wouldn't have. But we have this thing, this record of him, you know, literally a year before he died. So
Yeah.
It's like
I
that's
do.
the other thing about movies is that it's literally a record of a person at a particular time.
Yeah. Yeah. Like me in Flabulous, I had eyebrows, my natural eyebrows, I must say, and I miss them. I'm reminded, every time I see myself, I'm like, oh, those eyebrows. Oh, I had a widow's